What if I told you Sony is planning to launch a PlayStation handheld by fall 2025? What if I told you they aim to pack the power of the PS5 into the palm of your hands? And what if I told you it's going to be even more powerful than the current Xbox Series S? Lastly, what if I told you that Sony is planning to create a PS5 handheld console that will function similarly to the Nintendo Switch with a dockable feature? I know what you're thinking. Big claims require solid proof. So stick around and I'll explain how all this could be possible. I'll cover each claim, and I think you're going to love this one. As always, it's very important to quote sources. Once again, our sources include Moore's Law is Dead, among others like Insider Gaming, Tom Henderson, and more in the description. Some of you may still be skeptical about the credibility of these sources, so I want to show you this, a copyright strike email. This is the strike that Moore's Law is Dead received for leaking a document on the PS5 Pro. It's literally here, completely blurred out because I don't want to get a copyright strike either. So with that out of the way, let's get into the details. According to hardware leaker MLD, Sony is developing a genuine PlayStation Portable that can play games natively and won't just be a streaming device like the PlayStation Portal. Games could also receive a Pro-like patch to boost the performance of some titles to PS5-like quality, though how this would work remains to be seen. Let's talk about a theory of how a potential PS portable handheld could run PS4 and PS5 games natively. Here's how the theory unfolds. When we play our PS5s on a big screen, whether the resolution is 1440p, 4K, or even 1080p upscaled to 4K, it requires a significant amount of horsepower. The higher the resolution and the more effects like anti-aliasing are on the screen, the more power we need. Now, I'm thinking that the new PS Vita 2 will feature an 8-inch display with a resolution of 800p to 900p and a refresh rate of 90 Hz. That's what we're hearing right now. The processor will be a special AMD APU, similar to the one in the PS5 and compatible with all PS4 games. Here's where it gets interesting. Remember how I talked in previous videos about the PSSR tech that Sony is developing for the PS5 Pro? I'm guessing this will be implemented in the new PS Vita 2. This would allow for the internal resolution to be either 720p or even 540p, and with PSSR tech, they will upscale it to 900p. Games might actually run at 60 FPS on this device. Now, I know what you're thinking. 720p, 540p, that's going to look horrible. But remember, we are working with a smaller screen here. The smaller the screen, the less resolution we need. So, I think the combination of the PSSR tech and the internal resolution will provide a pretty nice image output. The only time we'd start to see pixelation and blurriness is if we connected it to an HD TV. Have you seen the Switch connected to a 4K 50-inch TV? Please, don't look it up. First of all, it's never common to see a handheld match the power of a previous generation console. But again, it doesn't mean the PS Vita 2 has to match the PS5 in power just to play those games. Instead, developers would patch their titles, scale down the resolutions, level of detail, the frame rate, I don't know, do whatever they got to do to get this running on a portable device. And I think it's actually fairly realistic, assuming that AMD's trajectory with AI upscaling moves at a similar rate to NVIDIA's. It's not hard to imagine that a next-generation handheld could internally render PS5 games at 480p and then upscale them to 1080p with minimal quality loss. What makes this whole concept so interesting is that it pretty much solves all of Sony's greatest problems with the PlayStation brand going forward. Let's talk about how it solves the great handheld issue. Developers would never need to make PSP3-specific games. They wouldn't have to do any work to even get existing PS4 games running on the hardware, which means thousands of games are instantly available for this device. You'd probably have some minimal work to get those patches for the PS5 games, but what's interesting is how this could relate to the PlayStation 6. Moore's Law is Dead speculates that the new handheld will be marketed in Japan as a PlayStation 6 portable. In Japan, home console sales are just not very good. The only console to really have any staying power in the country is the Nintendo Switch. Sony would position the PSP3, or PS6P, whatever you want to call it, as an alternative to their home console in the region. At least that's what Moore's Law Dead speculates. If you haven't skipped or kept watching the video, I'm sure it's starting to make sense to you, right? Now, let's continue. In the past, I was skeptical for the possibility of a new Sony handheld because it just never made much sense. The original PSP sold well enough, but a lot of evidence suggests that a large part of the success of that console was just due to pirating software and emulation, as opposed to actually being successful on its own terms. The PlayStation Vita was a disaster, and while many look back on the device fondly, it ended before its time, and it cannot be denied that the entire concept was flawed. Game development costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time to build these experiences, and you want to appeal to the widest audience possible. Why would you want to make a game for a handheld that's only sold 10 million units, when you can make a game for consoles that like 150+ million combined people own, plus the PC? This is why Nintendo merged their handheld and console divisions, because it's just the sensible thing to do as game development gets more expensive. These are the compromises you've got to make. So, what I'm trying to say is that we might get a new type of console similar to the PS5, one that might function exactly like a Nintendo Switch. Imagine a PS5S, but in the palm of your hands, with all the DualSense features built in, just like in the PS Portal. Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen people online talking about how the new DualSense controller is a gimmick. Some people, including my subscribers, have expressed their opinions on the controller, saying it's not as comfortable as the PS4's controller, and they deactivate the haptic feedback. But if you ask me, I think it's an amazing piece of tech. In the first month of playing with it, I was a bit iffy about it too. But very soon I fell in love with it, so I truly welcome it in the new PS Vita 2, or whatever you want to call it. Having said that, I also want to express some fresh opinions on the PS Portal. Online, there seems to be a lot of hate for this gadget, but when you look closer, it seems to be selling out every month, and Sony keeps updating the software to improve stability. Over the past month, I have been playing around with PS Remote Play on my Samsung phone, and, to be honest, I don't feel that much input delay, although I do get some stuttering from time to time, even though I have a pretty high-speed connection. So what I'm trying to say is that the PS Portal is starting to look like an interesting option for me, especially because this handheld we're talking about today won't come out for at least another year and a half. And again, as I said, I like the haptic feedback, and I also like to lay down on the couch sometimes and enjoy a fun single-player game. I really wish Sony would do more with the PS Portal. It'd be great if we could use it as a second screen for some video games, kind of like what Nintendo did with the Wii U. Most third-party developers might shy away from it due to the costs and time needed to add these features, but Sony has the chance to do something truly awesome with it. Just picture this, playing Helldivers 2 with your mini-map and stratagems displayed right on the PS Portal, keeping your main screen uncluttered for pure action. Or, in story-driven games like GTA 5 or Watch Dogs, it could display real-time texts or calls from characters, making the narrative feel incredibly lifelike. For strategy games or RPGs, the PS Portal could run companion apps that provide additional lore, quest details, or even live stats and character progress. If Sony were to implement this and make the PS Portal more like a companion and less like a streaming device, oh man, it would outsell so fast you couldn't even say PS Portal sucks. Actually, you know what? Like this video into oblivion and share it with as many people as possible. Who knows? Sony might actually see this. And let me know if you want me to make a video specifically tackling this issue. But these are just my thoughts. What do you think? Oh, and if you want to know everything about the PS5 Pro, specs, release date, price, and more, check out these videos. Catch you in the next one.